Take a look at this video. These are arms worth 4 billion naira, and the story behind this seizure is wild. On the 21st of June 2024, a 40-feet container with registration number MAEU 165396 originating from Turkey was undergoing a routine check in one of Nigeria's ports when suddenly the importer started trying to bypass the usual protocol. Agents of the Nigerian Customs Service were determined to see the contents of the container as they've had it under surveillance for a while. After several back and forth, the service impounded the container and began the process of inspection. What they found was shocking. First, they had to make their way through items like doors, furniture, plumbing fittings, and leather bags. And when they got to the real content of this shipment, they found this: 764 units of Tomahawk black pump action rifles, 10 units of Venicaron silver pump action rifles, 50 units of Venicaron double barrel rifles, 20 units of Venicaron single barrel rifles. There were also some exclusive series, Sterling high quality live ammunition, and 70mm plastic shotgun shells. This is not just a stash of weapons. It is the fuel that powers a billion-dollar criminal industry, a trade that thrives on secrecy, corruption, and chaos. But the faces behind this large shipment of weapons remain a mystery. Over 40 million illegal weapons are in circulation in Africa, with more than 6 million of those said to be in the hands of civilians residing in Nigeria alone. But if the Nigerian Customs Service has been active seizing illegal consignments like this, how then did these weapons get into the country? Hang on, this report from 2019 might give us a clue. According to the Premium Times, a sitting governor of Ogun State had illegally imported substantial quantities of arms and ammunition into Nigeria during his time in office. The items included 4 million rounds of ammunition, 1,000 AK-47 assault rifles, 1,000 bulletproof vests, and an armored personal carrier. These imports were allegedly made without necessary approvals from the authorities. However, when summoned to answer questions, the governor denied the allegations, saying he had the permission to carry out these imports. The governor detailed how he sought the permission of former President Goodluck Jonathan and followed all due process for this importation. What he failed to tell Nigerians, however, was that he was only granted duty waivers for importation of 13 armored personal carriers. There was no mention of AK-47s and ammunition. So, how did he bring this large cache of weapons into the country? Well, between 2010 and 2017, a total of 21.5 million weapons and ammunition were shipped into Nigeria, some if not most of them illegally. According to the Nigerian Customs Service, they intercepted 10,598 such firearms and 114,929 rounds of ammunition valued at approximately 9.5 billion naira between 2018 and 2024. This is a lucrative industry with a market cap of over $1 billion, and it goes far beyond Nigeria. This trade is closely linked to transnational criminal organizations and heavily funded by individuals who profit off insecurity in different regions of Africa. But while you may think this trade is only carried out by shadowy figures working in the background, investigations have revealed how some African governments are also implicated in this illegal arms smuggling. For example, in 2013, a prison director in Niger reportedly sold his entire stockpile of weapons to Boko Haram. This trade was said to have been facilitated by a military officer stationed in Niamey. In another instance, weapons intended for peacekeeping forces were allegedly diverted to armed groups in northern Somalia. As world powers continue to intensify their fight against insecurity in the Sahel, I'd like to take you on a journey behind the scenes where supplies are being distributed. A journey that will reveal the true story behind every bullet fired in this region. A story of corruption, violence, and profit. The question we would like to answer here is, where did these bullets come from? Who profits from this endless circle of terror, and why is no one stopping it? This is the story of the criminal gang behind the illegal arms smuggling plaguing Africa. War is a business, and a very profitable one. The global arms market is said to be worth $363.7 billion in 2024. There's a whole industry dedicated to war, which is one of the reasons why conflict will never end. For every peacekeeping mission, billions of dollars is allocated to military contractors. These guys supply the manpower in cases where mercenaries are used. Others supply arms and ammunition. Now, where it gets tricky is that the militants, armed bandits, robbers, and terrorists whom these security forces are fighting in these endless wars on insecurity also have their own suppliers of arms and ammunition. You don't see videos of Boko Haram or ISIS members fighting with sticks and archers, do you? That is because there are certain people making truckloads of money from supplying these bad guys with military-grade weapons and ammunition. When you consider the fact that there are more than 40 million illegal weapons circulating in Africa alone, you begin to see the size and scale of the hidden market we're talking about here. According to this report titled West Africa Sahel Connection, there are an estimated 12 million small arms circulating in the Sahel region alone. Countries like Burkina Faso, Cote d'Ivoire, Ghana, and Niger serve as transit points for these illegal arms. Most arms dealers stick to black market where they get help from corrupt government officials or criminal organizations to facilitate these transactions. In North Africa, Libya is ranked as the epicenter of the firearms black market, thanks in no small part to the activities of the US and its NATO allies back in 2011. Weapons from Libya have since been fueling terrorism in the Sahel, with armed groups in Mali taking advantage of this supply route. But guns are not always trafficked from outside the borders of these affected countries. Some of these weapons are sourced locally and supplied to these terrorist groups. Ghana is said to have the most sophisticated local firearms production in the region. Local blacksmiths produce approximately 200,000 illegal firearms annually. This figure contributes to the large number of unregistered weapons in the country. For just $9, blacksmiths can craft firearms for you. These weapons are then sold to intermediaries and traffickers who smuggle them across borders, supplying both local criminal elements and conflicts in neighboring states. These weapons are sold at prices ranging from $90 to $150 each, depending on the type and technology of the weapon. AK-47, for example, is said to be very durable and has a low production cost. This makes it one of the most trafficked assault rifles globally, and its price varies by region. In 2021, AK-style weapons were priced between $750 and $1,300 in northern Mali, depending on the model and condition. In Niger, prices range from $1,200 to $2,500, mostly influenced by local demand and availability. When we head over to Burkina Faso, reports claim that the weapon was sold here for $1,700 back in 2019. And coming back to Nigeria, the National Security Advisor reported back in April 2024 that government efforts to combat illegal weapon trafficking had increased the black market price of an AK-47 to about 5 million naira now, approximately $3,000. But the question is, has this increase in black market price deterred these guys from going for the same weapon? Also, where are they even getting these weapons to sell in the black market? A 2022 report by the Office of the Auditor General for the Federation revealed that nearly 180,000 firearms were missing from the Nigerian police armories in 2019. The report submitted to the National Assembly disclosed that 88,078 of those missing weapons were AK-47 rifles and 3,907 other assorted rifles and pistols from different police formations nationwide. The question is, who stole those weapons and to whom were they delivered? Are the stolen weapons part of the stash being sold in black markets for 5 million naira? Now let me show you something very interesting with the supply chain used by the cartel fueling this illegal trade. This is the Nigeria-Benin Republic border. A few years ago, there was a report in Punch newspaper disclosing how 5 members of a trans-border robbery gang were arrested along this route. The suspects were disguised as commercial motorcycle operators. They had AK-47 rifles and 2 magazines loaded with 60 rounds of live ammunition hidden under the seats of their motorcycles. Upon further investigations, authorities would learn that these weapons had been used in multiple car snatching and armed robbery operations along this border. These are the end users of the arms smuggled into the country. 4 years earlier, in May 2017, the Controller General of Nigeria Customs Service announced the discovery of 1,100 pump-action rifles disguised as wash-hand basins. The shipment passed Lagos ports before being confiscated. An SBM intelligence report published in 2021 estimated that there were 6.2 million smuggled arms of this nature in the hands of civilians in Nigeria. But this figure must have gone up since then, as arms seizures have grown significantly in recent years. Between 2022 and May 2023, men of the Nigerian military and other security agents reportedly intercepted 385,079 firearms and ammunition. The military also seized 66,692 firearms between January and April 2024. There have been hundreds of weapon seizures and interceptions by the Nigerian Customs Service. But how are these weapons getting in? West Africa is reported to be a major hotspot for arms trafficking. Several countries serve as key transit points for arms dealers scattered across the region. Niger is said to be one of those key transit points, with traffickers using established smuggling routes to facilitate movement of weapons across West Africa. Weapons sourced from Libya, Mali and Nigeria are reportedly taken through northern Niger from Libya's southwestern border. Some of these routes connect Niger to southern Algeria and continue to states like Mali, Burkina Faso and Nigeria. Côte d'Ivoire is another important hub for small arms smuggling, with major trafficking routes intersecting at tri-border areas involving Burkina Faso, Mali and Ghana. In recent years, weapons seized in countries like Burkina Faso, northern Nigeria and central Mali have been traced back to stocks originating from Côte d'Ivoire. In Mali, arms diverted from Libyan stockpiles were reportedly used to start widespread violence following events of the Arab Spring back in 2011. Since then, Libya has been the primary source of illegal weapons in Mali, with Niger being the route used for this smuggling. However, a large number of illicit weapons in Bamako, Mali's capital city, are produced in illegal workshops within the city, with nearly 80% of seized weapons originating from these local sources. And when we move to Ghana's notorious neighbor, Nigeria, illegal arms have been used in communal clashes, insurgency and criminal activities here for decades. According to Small Arms Survey, Nigeria's porous borders allow smugglers from different countries to bring in arms and ammunition at will. The smugglers use speedboats to connect to the high seas and then ferry the arms back to shore. The smuggling routes typically pass through Niger, Chad and Cameroon, where traffickers use various methods to conceal and transport weapons into Nigeria. Most of the weapons, such as the Russian AK-47, the German G3, Czech machine guns and Serbian rocket-propelled grenades known as RPGs, are supplied by illegal dealers and sellers who are paid through the proceeds of stolen crude. On land, traffickers often conceal arms in large shipments of legitimate goods, including weapons which are usually hidden and transported in lorries carrying items from Burkina Faso, rice sacks from Benin Republic, second-hand clothing called okrika, and even animal products. According to an investigation by The Whistler, there is a highly organized smuggling network operating along the Idi-Iroko border in Ogun State and the Seme border in Lagos State. This network is run by individuals who call themselves crossers, and they facilitate the movement of contraband and other goods between Benin Republic and Nigeria. These smugglers are familiar with the border areas and they have close connections with security officers such as corrupt custom officials who sometimes aid their activities. The investigation uncovered 2 methods of smuggling used here: One involves what is called flying through the approved border, and the other is using unauthorized or illegal routes to cross into the country. When a smuggler flies goods or vehicles, it means he will take the goods or vehicles through Seme or Idi Iroko borders after paying necessary duties for some of the goods or vehicles. This method is coordinated with custom officers who may even encourage smugglers to use this system as it benefits both parties financially. Smugglers typically pay for a fraction of the goods they transport, and the officers turn a blind eye, receiving a share of the payment. According to one smuggler that was interviewed for this story, when transporting vehicles, they negotiate with custom officers to pay duty on half of the number of vehicles and fly the remaining ones without further checks. The Whistler uncovered that some custom officers actively collaborate with smugglers by creating fake duty papers and manipulating vehicle registration codes. These fake documents allow smugglers to evade government taxes and generate significant profits for themselves and complicit officers. For transporting contraband, dangerous goods, or dutiable items such as arms without any intention of paying duties, smugglers rely on unapproved routes. These routes allow them to bring in goods without paying any duties or attracting the attention of authorities. These smugglers have also organized themselves into groups or associations where they appoint leaders who work directly with customs officials to make their operations smoother. And the authorities are not disputing the existence of this operation. A customs officer reportedly confirmed that there are over 200 illegal routes from Benin to Ogun State, making it nearly impossible for customs to monitor all of these entry points. Well, why monitor entry points that will be useful to your own alleged smuggling activities? According to an intense investigation done by investigative journalist Fisayo Soyombo, Nigeria's Customs Service aids smugglers by providing insider information to them. But who are these actors behind these smuggling operations? Findings from research across Nigeria revealed a complex cast of actors, including criminal organizations, terrorist groups, state and non-state actors, tribal entities, and local communities contributing to the ongoing arms trade in the region. Boko Haram has been able to smuggle arms into Nigeria using various methods, such as the use of specially crafted skin or thatched bags attached to camels, donkeys, and cows, where arms are concealed and moved across the borders with the aid of herders. Its members are said to work closely with merchants involved in cross-border trade to help stuff their arms and weapons in goods that are transported via heavy trucks, trailers, and lorries. Given the huge size of the goods loaded onto these vehicles, sometimes very little or no check is conducted on them by security and border officials. We also have low-level transporters who are critical to the illicit arms trade. These individuals often work independently, transporting small quantities of arms across unmanned and uncontrolled borders. Some travel on motorbikes, others use small and old vehicles that will not arouse suspicions from the authorities. They rely on the lack of border enforcement and use concealment techniques to avoid detection. For large-scale operations, we have organized smuggling rings that typically control the movement of arms across larger networks. These groups operate from capital cities and regional hubs, coordinating routes, schedules, and distribution. They rely on low-level transporters and maintain connections with corrupt officials, tribal networks, and even government forces to facilitate the trafficking process. Government forces and politicians are also involved in arms trafficking. Corruption at border points allows traffickers to bypass checkpoints or receive insider assistance. Military-grade weapons such as AK pattern rifles are sometimes diverted or rented out by members of state forces to illicit users. You see, the illicit flow of firearms significantly fuels terrorism across Africa, enabling violent extremist groups to expand their operations and escalate regional instability. This market that seems to have made some millionaires overnight has a human cost to it. In December 2023, a series of coordinated attacks by armed gangs in central Nigeria resulted in significant loss of lives and injuries. local government officials reported that over 100 people were killed and hundreds wounded in these incidents. The violence primarily affected villages in the Bokos area and extended into neighboring Barakin Ladi. When officials arrested some persons suspected to have carried out that attack, they recovered these weapons from them. Benue State has also experienced similar violent attacks by armed groups often called bandits in recent months. Like in April 2023, when armed groups killed at least 74 people in 2 separate attacks within the state. A year later, in August 2024, a similar attack by the same bandits led to at least 30 deaths. Barely 3 months after this attack, armed gangs stormed a community and kept it under siege for 3 days. Dozens were killed in this incident. So, what is the government doing to curb this arms smuggling that is fueling insecurity in this region of Africa? In October 2024, Nigeria's National Security Advisor, Nuhu Ribadu, announced that the federal government of Nigeria is investigating the Gulf of Guinea as a primary conduit for arms trafficking into the country. Nigerian security forces have conducted multiple raids to intercept smuggled weapons. But despite all of these efforts, the government has so far failed to disclose the identities of the wealthy fellows behind this $1 billion worth of arms shipments into the country. So my question is, how can we stop arms smuggling without prosecuting the smugglers?